ain't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's your boy Ernie the Blerd Without Fear. Welcome back to the channel. And also welcome back to another round of the best comics this week, the show where I take the 5 best comics I read each and every new comic book day, give you a brief overview about them, tell you why you should check these comics out, as well as tell you about stuff that's going on in the industry, as well as putting you on game about indie comics and trades that you're definitely going to want to read, as well as what comics you should be looking out for and have in your pull box. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell. That way you don't ever miss a single episode of Best Comics this week. All right, so now let's get into our first entry, and that's gonna be Miles Morales Spider-Man number 34. This issue is great. Cody Ziegler has been lights out with the Miles Morales Spider-Man series. This is like, I'm not gonna hold you. While there's a lot of good Miles Morales out there, don't get it twisted. There's plenty of it. But I think Cody writes Miles Morales in a way that I don't even think the creator of Miles Morales can. Like, it's just, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Cody Ziegler knows how to write this character and how to tell a story about Miles that even if we have seen the story before, we're not gonna read it the way that we read it before. And while I'm saying that, it's not the case for this issue. This issue is definitely a story that, to my understanding, I don't think we've seen Miles really caught up in the middle of. Right now, what's going on is the God War story arc, and it's a really great tale taking advantage of Miles' recent, uplifting as the Herald of Anansi. Not only is he the Herald of Anansi, but he has also been cured of that wacky BS vampirism that he was dealing with from Jed MacKay's Blood Hunt series. That's done. But with becoming the Herald of Anansi, we also are seeing Miles go toe-to-toe with characters who you could make an argument are a bit above his weight class. We know the villain Ares, the god of war, not just in the Marvel Comics universe, but just period. He wants to throw hands with Anansi, and right now they're caught in the middle of this game that Anansi has his champion, Ares has his champion, and he's basically making them fight against each other, or not even really so much fight against each other, but in a lot of cases, just performing in random games against each other in an effort to quell some long-standing beef that Anansi and Ares have. We're reintroduced to the new character, Keisha Kwan. More on her in a separate video, but for those who do not know, she is a character, while she's not new to this issue or even the previous issue, she actually made her first appearance in 2023's Miles Morales Spider-Man number 13. And here, we're actually getting to see her cut loose in some ways we've never seen before. She is, for all intents and purposes, a Gamma Mutate, who, as you would imagine, has some She-Hulk-isms. But that's all I really want to say about her for right now. We also get to see Miles navigate the twisted and ever-sprawling weave of Anansi's stories and lies, and we're gonna be asked a few questions. Is Anansi just the weaver of stories, or is he the master of lies? Has Anansi been misleading Miles on a journey that would ultimately only serve Anansi's ever-mercurial desires? Will Anansi reveal he truly cared for Miles Morales and genuinely wanted to save him from the clutches of being a vampire? Will Miles make friends of enemies, or enemies among friends? Are Miles's days as the Herald of Anansi doomed to come to an end, or is he only just getting started? And more importantly, will Ares ever stop being an angry douchebag? Oddly enough, the answer to all of those questions is yes. Next up on the list is going to be Mr. Terrific Year 1 number 2. This issue, while I know some people complained about the leap in art quality in the first issue because there's a very different art style at the very beginning of the book that changes when you start going back into the year 1 aspect of it. That doesn't change, so if that was a barrier for entry for you, I'm gonna go into it right now, nothing changed here. Yes, the first 2 or 3 pages are gonna be by Edwin Gallman, and the remaining pages are gonna be by Valentin Delandro. That's fine. That's fine. I don't really have that big of an issue with that because, I mean, that's kind of normal for comics. Even though it is a pet peeve of mine when we have 2 different artists working on the same book, I do not mind it as much when it's two different artists who are using their different styles to depict very different points in the story. In this case, the past and the present. In this issue, with Mr. Terrific's best friend Dre having been assassinated by the Cormorant in the previous issue, this has left Terrific in a very actionable position. He's already lost his wife Paula and their unborn child to a car accident, and now Dre is gone, so what's left for Michael but death itself? Literally. When Michael attempts to end it all, he's visited by the Spectre, the manifestation of God's wrath. We get to see a compelling conversation between an atheist and a literal part of God himself. This also serves as a reintroduction to Mr. Terrific's past, his connection as a legacy character to the original Mr. Terrific, Terry Sloan of the Justice Society of America, as well as a throwback to the 1997 comic The Spectre number 54, where a similar conversation as to what happens here in this issue takes place. Granted, it goes very differently, where there in the original 1997 Spectre comic, it was more about Terrific drawing a line in the sand that the young men Terrific was fighting back against, who were committing crimes in his neighborhood, didn't deserve to face the Spectre's wrath. And here, Terrific is still figuring out whether he wants to be a superhero at all. We also get to see what is, in my opinion, a very interesting little taste of Black history, at least in terms of the connections between characters in DC Comics. The fact that we get to learn that not only was Michael good friends with Dre, but he was also really good friends with Black Lightning. Now, this I don't think is gonna surprise a lot of people, because if you ever read the JSA series or any of the other JSA, I guess, adjacent books, it was already pretty public knowledge that the two characters were friendly with one another. So the idea that they're really good friends in this, it's hardly a surprise. It's just that here, we're getting a little bit more context as to how they became friends even before the superhero shenanigans. And then last but most certainly not least, we actually get some answers as to who the hell Athena Prescott is, the woman who Mr. Terrific had basically sold his company to, and also the very same woman who is actively poisoning the bottoms of Gateway City. Athena is not working alone in this matter, that there are actually more people, or at least one other person, who is bankrolling this whole thing in an effort for doing something that we don't really know what the end game of is yet. But what we've been constantly getting teases of is that Mr. Terrific, for being what is effectively, I guess, a street level themed hero, that he actually has more ties to the greater and wider cosmic world of DC Comics. And it just so happens that the person who's bankrolling Athena in all this happens to come from the fourth world. Now let's get into what is always my favorite portion of the show, of the week. So what is on the docket today, you're probably asking yourself. We just recently, as of the time of this recording, gotten the first 3 episodes of Marvel's Ironheart. It debuted just the previous night, and I got to watch them. They were great, they were fantastic. I was laughing and cackling the whole time, and I was just literally on the edge of my seat for a lot of the wacky shenanigans that were going on. And I was absolutely here for the artificial intelligence who is modeled in the guise of Riri's now dead best friend, Natalie. And also for the Hood's Robin Hood style gang that's basically breaking into these corporate CEOs strongholds and taking their money, or setting themselves up with what is effectively golden parachutes. Yeah, I loved it. I was here for it. But what I was not here for are the incels that are trying to ruin this for everybody. Now, yes, Marvel was really bad about not advertising the show. That's one thing. But one thing I will say is that I do appreciate the full court press they put on once they started to realize that people like myself, as well as Jamie, who is the founder of Black Girl Nerds, as well as Megan of the Vigilante Vibes podcast, once I think they realized that we took notice and we were constantly calling these people out, we were calling Marvel Studios and Disney out, holding them to task for not advertising the show, to the point that, you know, they've actually been doing a lot better about it. And even got in on the shenanigans when we did our live threads party. But the incels will not stop. And basically what the incels did, and the reason why I'm putting them in the gulag, is because they were trying to tank the Rotten Tomatoes numbers of the show. Now, what purpose does this serve? Does this help anybody? Does this hurt anybody? Ironheart opened to, I think, a 79%, and I think it dropped to about as low as 72%, but it was because people were review bombing Ironheart. And what I appreciated was that the people who reported on this, they actually pointed out, and I'm very happy that people were doing this, they pointed out that the majority of the reviews that were for Ironheart were put up before the show was even out. And these weren't people who were a part of the press. These weren't people who had early access to the show. These were people who literally had not even clapped so much as a single eyelid on this show and were already trying to put it down. And that's usually what happens in the case of things like this. You know, these people who do review bombing, these are 99.999999999% always people who have not seen the show or movie that they're review bombing. Usually, at least in the case of movies, TV shows, that's always the case pretty much. In the case of other forms of media, sometimes it's the case, sometimes it's not. It really depends on what the situation is. But I think we're all smart enough to be able to realize what those situations are. Like if you see reviews where it's like, oh, this is woke DEI, this, that, and the third, I think we know that we do not need to take these reviews seriously. People who regularly get cheeks, or at least on some level get cheeks, do not have the energy for this sort of stuff. You're not involuntarily celibate, you are voluntarily celibate, because people who choose to waste their entire day trying to scheme some kind of a way to tank a TV show's review scores, for one, it's weird. For two, that is virgin behavior. And for three, that's... If you're still here by this particular point in the video, consider dropping a like. At this point, you're at least a third or more of the way into the show. So yeah, hit that like button. It really helps me out. Also, not only does it help me out, it helps you, because for one, it'll help you find more videos like these, even if they're not mine. And for two, it helps me because it helps me find more viewers like you. All right, so let's get to our next entry. That's gonna be Absolute Wonder Woman number 9. This issue was a really good Diana, like, case study issue, as I feel like most Absolute Wonder Woman issues are, but it also was, you know, where some of the previous issues have been kind of diving more into the humanity of Wonder Woman. This one actually dives a little bit more into how much Diana does not care about what it takes to get the right thing done. In this issue, we see her at multiple points threaten bodily harm on Dr. Poison. And what I love about this too is because, you know, there's an old saying, you know, amongst DC Comics fans, if you're a criminal in the DC Comics universe and you had to make your choice of which 3 members of the Trinity you wanted to be caught by, no one ever picks Wonder Woman. After her encounter with Dr. Poison, though, Diana learns of a maze hidden under Area 41, the very same Area 41 we saw in the previous issue, where Veronica Cale had already showcased that not only has she been holding Dr. Poison captive, but she has learned how to weaponize the Tetracide, the very same monstrous creature Diana had a difficult time dealing with just a few issues prior. And while Dr. Poison, despite typically being a villain in main continuity, seems pretty forthright in the Absolute universe, she reveals there is an actual maze under the black site, Area 41, and it's not just a maze, but a prison. The question then becomes, is Dr. Poison telling the truth about there being an Amazon trapped within that maze, or is this a trap? And I think the answer ultimately is, it's a little bit of both. Diana winds up meeting a couple of carryovers from main continuity, technically 3, but I'm only really gonna focus on one of them specifically, and I don't really want to give away who the latter is, but I'll just say one of them is the Minotaur Ferdinand, a character who has long been connected to Wonder Woman since his debut in 2003's Wonder Woman number 196. And while the cover would possibly mislead you to thinking he is a foe in this issue, that's actually not the case. Main continuity Ferdinand is one of the good guys, and under normal circumstances is not the mythical Minotaur of legend, just a Minotaur. That said, the person that Diana meets this issue, the very Amazon who she is seeking out within the maze itself, if the person Diana is looking for and the person Dr. Poison has told her about are the same person, it is safe to say that Dr. Poison may not be as well versed in Amazons as she may have let on, or she was just whole ass lying. Whatever the case is, the person who Diana finds in the maze is not an Amazon at all. I won't say who she is, but I will just put it out here that people who are well versed in Wonder Woman lore will probably know exactly who this woman is. She's not an Amazon, however, she is an Atlantean. Next up on the docket is going to be Void Rivals number 20. Void Rivals has just been cooking, and while the previous issue I don't believe made Best Comics this week, it was just because it was a really tight week. Honestly, there's a lot of books that aren't making it this week because of how tight this week is when it comes to comics. There's a lot of books that should be on this list that are not on this list, and it just kind of is what it is. However, what I will say is that with Void Rivals, one of the things that we were promised is we were gonna eventually see what the hell is gonna happen between the Agorians and the Zertonians. We'd already seen that Derek, the son of the leader of the Agorians, Doolin, he was trying to get his dad on board with working with the Zertonians, and we know that Salilla had just recently become one with Zerta and taken her power and her memories and is now working in an effort to try to enact the unity, the very thing that Doolin has been fighting against. We get to see Derek and Salilla reunited for the first time in a while in the past issue, and now we get to see what happens now that Salilla has her new mission. Can she win over Derek's father, Doolin, the leader of the Agorians? He's already aware that the two species are the same, but he has different information than what Salilla does. His information about their origin is secondhand at best, like learning about Christianity from a Bible as opposed to directly speaking with the source, God. And that is what Salilla has done. She has spoken with Zerta herself, the creator of both species. And while the conversation goes nowhere fast at first, we do get to see plenty of awesome action from Salilla taking on Doolin's guards, which is always fun to watch. We also learn a little more about the reveal of the Skugzoids, playing into the lore of the Skugzoids being an army of clones, further explaining why Skugzoid was having conflicting memories over multiple issues, why he always seemed to have a misrepresentation of his past or what was even going on with him, because he is literally split off and cloned off from himself multiple times over. Not only this being kind of played for laughs, but also being played for some really heart-wrenching emotions over the course of several issues, but also giving us a little bit of a taste of the Mauler twins from the Invincible universe in the Energon universe, because for those who may or may not be aware, this is a Robert Kirkman title, so of course, there being two people who are exactly the same, they're being clones of one another, it's no surprise that there's Mauler twin jokes. Not only that, we also get to find out what is the fate of Zalalak, the premier of Zertonia. We saw previously that Mistress Vil had taken Zalalak prisoner and was putting him through his paces, basically trying to make him a better Zertonian and to give up those old teachings that were anti-unity, and now he has taken up the cause of unity. Now the question becomes that with everything Zalalak has gone through and his new mission statement, is this going to be something that brings both himself and Minister Doolin closer together, or is this going to push them further apart? in opposition. All right, now let's get into our trade spotting segment. And for this one, I'm actually gonna select, and I've actually been trying to do this more often, is to select some things that you can find on Global Comics. For those who do not know, I am a Global Comics partner, and because I am, that means I can give you awesome deals on Global Comics. If you scan the QR code over here, you will be able to get 33% off your first 1-year subscription of Global Comics. These usually run $89.99 per year, though they do introductory prices of $79.99 normally. Because you're tight with me, that means you get that 33% off, so you can actually get your first year for $59.99. And what that does is you gain access to what is effectively almost hundreds of thousands of digital comics, ranging from DC Comics, Image Comics, Dynamite Entertainment, Boom Studios, Top Cow, Mad Cave, and even some manga. But yes, I'm gonna try and put, anytime we do trade spotting, I wanna put some things on there that you can find on that app. All that aside, I wanted to highlight in this segment East of West by Jonathan Hickman and Nick Dragato. East of West is a very interesting story, one that I've actually talked about on this channel a couple of times, not in so much in a video format. Maybe we'll do a video on it at some point. In the event that you're unfamiliar with East of West and you don't know how thick of a story this is a compendium of the entirety of East of West. It's huge. This is a thick girl. She thick. Thick thighs save lives. So do thick books. East of West is an epic story of love, death, politics, and revenge, all centered around the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and what could possibly drive a wedge between them the same way a wedge was driven through humanity. Imagine a world where history has changed so dramatically that it's hard to tell where the wastelands end and the dystopia begins. The politics of the world have changed, and a conspiracy within this post-apocalyptic world has led to death, splitting from the other horsemen and going on a journey of vengeance for the death of someone really close to him. Imagine if the Fallout game series had a baby with Judge Dredd in a world where the Civil War never ended. And even that, I think, is not as fair of an assessment, but also if you check out this book, you'll learn why so many House of X fans and Krakoa X-Men stans, why they used to say that when Hickman went to Marvel to write House of X and reimagine what the X-Men could be, why so many people thought Marvel just hired him to write East of West for them. Last, and most certainly not least, is going to be VR Troopers #1. For those who have not been keeping up, the Boom Studios Power Rangers series had recently relaunched with Power Rangers Prime, and one of the things that came out of that relaunch was the introduction of the VR Troopers to the greater Power Rangers mythos. Basically, what you need to know going into this series is that VR Troopers have effectively been Slick the bad guys of the Power Rangers. I won't even say the bad guys, because right now the Eltarians, who, for those that know what the Eltarians are, that's basically Zordon from Power Rangers species. Well, the Eltarians have kind of been the bad guys lately, and the VR Troopers, well, they're not necessarily villains, they are antagonists to the current iteration of the Rangers. This series does not focus on the Power Rangers at all. This series focuses strictly on the Troopers. Whereas with Power Rangers, we're dealing with a whole new cast of characters that don't really have much, if anything, to do with the TV series, at least as far as the Rangers are concerned. Rita Repulsa is still a thing, but in this particular instance, we are dealing with the VR Troopers from the TV series. So Ryan Steele, JB Reese, and Caitlin Starr, they are very much still a thing. And while this first issue does not really focus on all of the characters, it really focuses more on Ryan than it does anything else, which isn't really much of a surprise considering that was pretty much kind of the vibe on the TV show, for reasons that I could go into, and I probably will, but basically what a lot of people tend to not know about VR Troopers is, while yes, it is a show that is made from tokusatsu footage. Basically, it was the different seasons of the Metal Hero series. All 3 characters came from different shows. They used 2 different shows to make Ryan's character, and JB and Caitlin, there was another show that they came from. This is why the characters' costumes kind of changed, or why they weren't always together. But that's neither here nor there. Point of the matter is, this issue focuses primarily on Ryan, who is kind of going through some shit, and he's trying to do his normal trooper job, and in the midst of doing this, he encounters a mysterious figure who, for all intents and purposes, I'm just going to say right now, is maybe the worst kept secret in the history of worst kept secrets. That said, it doesn't diminish the fun of the book. I don't really want to go into the who the mysterious character is, because I feel like anything I say is just going to make it worse. But I'll just say this. When Ryan encounters this mysterious figure, it is someone who is very clearly connected to him, who knows something about him, and is also capable of maybe possibly becoming a trooper themselves. But this whole issue is just interesting in so much that they kind of found a nice, I guess, middle ground on how to tell a story about the VR troopers while keeping them connected to the Power Rangers, but not really dragging the Power Rangers directly into this, so that at least the VR troopers have their own room to breathe. Typically, I don't particularly care for the whole, hey, let's take these protagonists and make them go against these protagonists. I'm not the hugest fan of that type of stuff. It has to be done in a very specific way for me to really care about it. So I was actually glad that, yes, we got a book where the VR troopers can, they can have their little safe space and not feel like the bad guys in someone else's story. And while I mentioned earlier that Ryan gets the lion's share of the storytelling in this, it's not to say that Caitlin and JB are just, doing nothing. I mean, no, they are doing stuff, and they do get to have some pretty interesting dialogue, some really cool moments, but also do it in a way that I feel the show always had difficulty with. Like, it always kind of felt like Caitlin and JB were afterthoughts. That's what it always felt like to me. Once again, it's because, the nature of how they had to make that show. It was what it was. I do, at the same time, appreciate what they are able to do with these 3 characters, actually put them in something that elevates the VR troopers above what I think even the TV show was. Like, I know a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia for that original show. I don't really have it. I mean, I think the theme song is awesome. Yeah, that's about it. I like the show itself. I think while I enjoy it, it's not good. It's not a good show. That doesn't make it any less entertaining. I feel like Margaret did a really good job of actually taking this group of characters seriously and writing them in such a way that it makes sense for you to care about them. Like, because once again, I think that the characters are pretty paper thin on the TV show. These characters actually feel like they have a little more gravitas in these comics, and that also is because technically different medium, so it kind of lends itself better, I think, towards getting to dig a little bit deeper than what a TV show usually can in the time that is allowed, especially on some stuff I recently learned about how TV shows need to be a certain number of pages and scenes are only really meant to be a certain number of pages. So yeah, I mean, it's the same for comics, but just the same, I think that this first issue, if it is anything to judge by, this series feels like it's in good hands. All right, so now let's get into the pull box report. I'm only gonna put a couple of things on there. One of them is gonna be the upcoming Blue Falcon and Dynamut series that is coming from Dynamite Entertainment. This is a book that was actually announced about a year and some change, almost a year and a half ago, but it was a part of the crop of comics that were revealed, like Captain Planet and the Herculoids and so on and so forth. Well, now that book is finally coming to fruition. It's going to be written by legend in the business, Jimmy Palmiotti. This book is going to be a reimagining and kind of a retelling to the origin of these characters, but I feel like in a lot of ways very similar to books like Captain Planet and Space Ghost. Gonna update that story for a more modern audience with more modern sensibilities without detracting from the core of what the characters are supposed to be. I've gotten to take a look at some of the pages for them unlettered. It looks great so far. I'm in for a penny, in for a pound. The next one on the pull list is the book I've actually talked about before, but this time I've actually gotten to read it. When I talked about this before, it was in conjunction with the mainline Godzilla Kaisei era comic, which also is not released yet, but I have read that first issue. And then with this one, this is a book that's not coming out till August the 6th, and the pre-order cutoff on it I think is imminent. But you should still go run to your LCS and try and get this book in your pull box. This is going to be a book that's coming from Ethan Parker and Griffin Sheridan, who are the minds behind the Image comic series Kill Your Darlings. If you're a fan of that series on any level, I think you're going to find a lot to love with this book. But for all intents and purposes, this is a story that, while yes, it takes place in the Godzilla universe, it's not really so much about Godzilla as it is about the Wasteland Wanderer, who is our main character. This is someone who has been affected by the Kaisei energy in a way that has mutated them into a monstrous figure, and how this character navigates the world of Godzilla now that they're trapped within the Dead Zone. What used to be Seattle, Washington, but is now known as a no man's land where no life should exist. If you're a fan of books like Ultra Mega, I also think you'll really find something to like here. Anyway, that is the best comics this week. I hope you all enjoyed it, and thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video if you're still here by this point and you enjoyed everything you got here. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, consider doing so. Click that subscribe button, tap that notification bell, that way you don't miss out on any of my videos, because being subscribed is nice, but not hitting that notification bell means you're gonna miss out on all the videos I put out, because YouTube does not like to recommend every video that I put out. So do that. Also, if you're still here and you enjoyed the video, click that like button, because clearly if you made it through all this, you had to have enjoyed it on some level. So click that like button, help a brother out, and hopefully you'll be keeping it plus ultra till I see you for the next best comics this week.